Many Western fans of anime and manga get overly attached to the idea of underdogs. A person not gifted with natural abilities, rising through the ranks of whatever occupation is important in the world, and reaching the top through hard work and ingenuity. The problem is that many of these people have such a rigid idea of what an underdog is that when a story divulges from that idea, they deem it poor writing, rather than simple plot evolution. I see this so often with a number of different series. So many people claim that Naruto was a story about a talentless loser rising through the ranks and reaching the top despite his lack of ability, an idea that they claim was later lost in the narrative. They ignore the fact that he's had a mountain-destroying demon inside him since chapter 1. They ignore the fact that the first time he truly applied himself, he beat up a chunin. They ignore the fact that after being a ninja for less than half a year, he stopped the Biju single-handedly, which is a Kage level feat. I want to quote an old video of mine. Naruto was always talented. The problem is that he was undisciplined and uncared for. The moment he actually found people who cared, he was well on his way to becoming extraordinary. Does this mean he was somehow a fake underdog? No. Underdog status is dependent on the in-universe perception of a character, and not what the audience believes. When you scan through his achievements in part 1, it becomes readily apparent that he always had the talent he needed. The rest of the world simply hadn't caught on yet. And when the rest of the world did catch on, that's it. He was no longer an underdog. But that's not a bad thing. No character is meant to be an underdog throughout the entire story, because that's not really possible. Especially in battle shonen, where the main character's goal, generally speaking, is to be the best at something. And while no character can be an underdog forever, it's also not a simple binary. A lot of people have this idea that a character either is or isn't an underdog, but that's not how it works. An underdog is simply a character who for whatever reason is at an overwhelming disadvantage in some way. This could be in public perception, like Naruto being an outcast, or in the form of our hero facing a much more powerful villain. For the first half of his story, Goku was not an underdog. He had always been a freak of nature and eventually became the strongest man on Earth. But he was certainly an underdog when he first fought Frieza. A character is always an underdog when they're faced with someone who's better than them. Also, this needs to be said. Hard work is incredibly overvalued and overrated in media discussion. The idea of becoming the best through hard work alone is not only a rigid idea, but it also seems to be more of a Western ideal. A lot of manga and light novels seem to focus on their heroes having connections to important legacies, destinies, and bloodlines. That doesn't mean these connections are everything though. They're generally symbolic. Naruto didn't get any powers or skills from being the reincarnation of the sage's son. And the same with Luffy being Joy Boy. It's not why they made it as far as they did. It's through the power they earned through mastery, rather than through divine powers that they were handed, that they were able to achieve their dreams. The idea of a protagonist having to reach the top through effort alone is very inspiring. And people let these ideas skew their view of some of these characters. So many people didn't believe that Luffy was of the Chosen One archetype until the Gear 5 reveal. So many people felt like Luffy had a bad devil fruit rather than a valuable, albeit silly fruit with a difficult learning curve. So many people discredit Naruto as a story for its main character being a reincarnation, despite the fact that it's a narrative decision that had no impact on his power or skills. They think that him being the so-called Ninja Jesus takes away any semblance of effort that he actually put in. It's why people to this day claim that Lee would have made a better protagonist, despite losing every major fight he's had, and not embodying most of the major themes of the narrative, and despite the fact that he was canonically a genius anyway. It's all about fitting into their ideal of an underdog, even if that ideal doesn't fit the story being told. And the idea that you can reach the top of any setting through sheer effort in itself is bad for world building. If the main character was truly a talentless hack and actually made it to the top, the narrative would need to convincingly explain why none of the other thousands of characters in the setting don't work as hard, especially in settings with life or death stakes. And these writers will fail to explain this convincingly because that's just not how the world works. Did Michael Jordan work harder than anyone else? Did Messi simply want it more? Did Ali put in the hours when nobody else would? Of course not. They worked hard, but so did everyone else. The difference maker was other things, like talent, genetics, and chance. Not all who work hard succeed, but all who succeed work hard. People need to get over the idea that being an underdog means that you shouldn't ever have any advantages. Being an underdog just means that you start out in a fairly low position and that no one in the verse expects you to be able to compete with other characters of higher status. Naruto, Ichigo, Luffy, Gon, and Asta, among others, all turned out to be special, but that doesn't change the fact that they were genuine underdogs for a decent chunk of their stories. If an underdog is always an underdog, then it can feel as though they haven't made any improvement at all. And in progression fantasy, the genre which most battle shonen fit in, that'd be terrible for the story. People need to think of underdogs as someone who had a bad start or is a late bloomer, rather than someone who has to always be weaker. None of these narratives that I brought up are perfect, but whether or not the main characters are underdogs has nothing to do with why. But I'm just one guy. Maybe I'm wrong. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. It really helps me out. And I'll see you guys next time.